Hello folks, and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be looking at the best budget console for 2024. Now my pick for the best budget console of 2024 would be the Sony PlayStation 4 Pro, not the original PS4. Now why am I picking the PS4 Pro? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, it is quite a bit more powerful than the original PS4, meaning it offers a bit of better longevity with some of the games that are still available for it. So, for example, it can be picked up for only £150 in places like CEX in the UK. It has a huge breadth of games, including remakes of PlayStation 3 games. And while it's not a 60 FPS machine in general, it does have an enormous amount of games. And of course, you can buy them for next to nothing now. And many will still look pretty much just as good as the PS5 games. Of course, you won't be getting that 60 FPS a lot of the time, but nonetheless, you have got a huge breadth of games on here, and the store is still open, probably for many years yet, considering Sony's installed base of this console. So you can play most of the games that are on PS5 on your PS4 still. So I know what you're thinking, why don't you just get a PS5? Well, a PS5 is still a lot of money compared to the £150 you can purchase one of these machines for. And then of course, like I said, you could go into shops like CEX and you can pick up the second-hand PS4 games. For example, if I come down to like God of War, that's probably about £3 or £4 second-hand. Games like Heavy Rain, which have been remastered from the PS3 version, next to no money in these shops. I mean, if you were buying a console, for example, for a young child, a PS4 Pro is probably a good bet. There's tons of games for everyone to enjoy on there. Not even mentioning the fact that you've got the original PSVR, which will be going quite cheap now, and still provides not the best VR experience, obviously, but it still provides a good fun experience, especially for younger children. But you've got to be careful with younger children with VR, obviously. But like I said, there's a mountain of games available on here. I mean, I've got tons of games installed, and some of these I haven't even got around to playing yet. It's just not enough time. Having said that, if you're a younger person or whatever, and you get one of these, and you can buy all the games you want for not very much money, kind of makes a bit of sense, really, to have one of these systems. My son's got one, for example, in his room, and I've given him access to my sort of PlayStation account, so he's got all of these games if he wants to play them. So what are the downsides of this system? Well, obviously it's not as powerful as PS5, so you're probably not, in a lot of games, going to get 60 FPS. And I know for a lot of people that would be quite an annoying thing. I kind of wish they had done that in this generation. I would have took a reduction in image quality in order to get 60 FPS, provided it wasn't an enormous reduction, but that wasn't really the way they did things in this generation. So another great thing about this generation, like I said, is you've got the PS3 games being remastered, for instance Beyond Two Souls, and this generation seemed to be the last one where there were some quite original games. I know there's been some good original games on PS5, but this feels like it was almost like still a console rather than just a PC in a fancy box. Don't get me wrong, I love my PS5, but if I was saying to somebody who's on a budget, what console would I get? I'd have to say this one. Excuse me. Now, obviously, the Xbox systems have backwards compatibility, which could be a big boon for you. However, if you didn't grow up with the older Xbox consoles, I would wager backwards compatibility probably isn't a massive sell for you, and that it's probably not been a massive seller for Microsoft because they've stopped working on it now. However, you can of course get PlayStation Plus on here, in which case you can then stream a mountain of games as well for a monthly payment. For example, because of PlayStation Plus, I've got 390 games I can install, let alone the streaming ones, and for not very much money. So another issue, of course, to watch out for is the console itself. They can be noisy. You want to look for one with a slightly later serial number on it, because they put quite a fan in there, and this thing can get quite noisy. But of course, if you're playing with surround sound, you probably won't even notice that. It's also another cheap way to get into Blu-rays. Not 4K ones, mind you, but it's a cheap way to get a Blu-ray player in the room as well. And of course, games like Final Fantasy VII Remake still playable on here. Yeah, they'll be 30 FPS, but they still look great, and it's still a great time to play it. And it's not a game that requires like really quick reactions or anything. And as you can see from me scrolling down here, I have got a ton of games, a ton. Now, obviously, games like Mad Max and whatever will probably play a bit better on the PS5 if it's been updated. Killzone Shadowfall has an unlocked frame rate, so on PS5 that plays amazingly. But it's still a really good looking game on here, and like I said, this is the best budget console for 2024, not the best console for 2024. So if you're on a budget, this still makes a good lot of sense, and it'll get you better performance in 4K and whatnot, which the original PS4 won't. So this is a good system to have. Now, what would I recommend doing to make this system especially good for 2024? So the first thing I would do, which I haven't done with this system however, is I would replace the internal hard disk with a 3.5-inch SATA SSD. That will get you much better performance in game with loading and whatnot, and it will also mean things like the UI will run quicker. For example, as I scroll through here, there's a tiny delay in loading up all of those icons. That's because it's got a physical hard disk in here, and obviously it has to look for that information. However, it's still pretty snappy. It's considering the age of this console, it's still pretty snappy, to be honest with you. And looking at the settings here, you can see if I go on sound and screen, video output, you can see it runs at 4K with HDR. It's not to say all the games will run at 4K, but it also enables you to have super sampling mode, where those games will down sample possibly and give you a better resolution, better graphics and whatnot, because they render at a higher internal resolution then. It's still getting system software updates, although likely mostly for security purposes now, but this will provide you with 7.1 surround sound, 4K, HDR. You know, it's got a lot of the things that the modern systems have, but it's just really cheap. And I've got to be honest, the user interface on here is actually, I would say, better than the PS5's, in my experience. It's more snappy, it's quicker. For example, if you press the PlayStation button, hold it down, you immediately get these options here. It's a bit more convoluted to do this in the PS5, and I kind of wish they'd bring this back, but that's up to Sony to do that. So, with the caveats of the fact that it is the best budget console for 2024, not the best console. If I was to pick the best console, I'd obviously have to say the PS5, or perhaps still the Nintendo Switch, depending on what you like to do with your consoles. If you've got a high-end PC, I would say these days you probably could do without the PS5 or the Xbox, and just play games through your PC and your Switch. That's a subject for another video. So with those caveats in place, I would have to say yes, the PlayStation 4 Pro with the newer serial numbers and an upgraded SSD instead of standard mechanical hard drive would be the way to go for my budget console of 2024. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to leave me a like, comment on this video, subscribe to my channel, and share this video on your social media so other people can see it. That really helps a lot. If you really enjoy my content, there is my Patreon as well. But I just want to thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.